Hello, everyone, and welcome to the afternoon keynote. We hope you've been enjoying the day so far. My name is Jen Jumba. I am the Popular Department Manager at Cleveland Public Library, the main branch, and I will be your moderator. Now, being the Popular Department Manager just means I have books that are no more than 2 years old on my shelves. So it's to say that I have the latest and the greatest and the most popular titles on my shelves, and I'm always happy to have the opportunity to talk to the very writers whose books sit on my bookshelves and I can happily recommend to readers. Carl Hiaasen has been delighting us and making us laugh for years with stories that hit close to the truth through humor, and Fever Beach is no exception. This is a story that reveals the ridiculous side of hatred with a motley group of characters who believe they are tasked with saving America. I'd like to introduce you. Warm welcome to writer Carl Hiaasen.
Thanks for having me on. Bravely.
Bravely. So let's talk a little bit about your new book that will be released in the spring, Fever Beach. How would you describe it using 5 words?
Not a deep spiritual journey.
Well said. Well said. So let's start a little bit by introducing us to the main character, Dale. Starts as a typical book. He's driving along and there's somebody who needs a ride, and what better thing to do than to pick up the person on the side of the road, and adventures ensue from there.
Right. The character of Dale and the also his sidekick that you meet a little bit later on, Jonas. They came to me, and this is like a lot of the stuff in my books. It's something I saw or witnessed or wrote about. And in this case, I got up one morning, and in the driveway of my house, there was a plastic bag, a baggie, and it had been filled with little rocks and things to weight it down, and it was just thrown in the driveway. And there was one in every one of my neighbors' driveway too. So I opened it up, and it's this vile, wretched screed, anti-Semitic screed, and it was in our neighborhood, and this started happening in Palm Beach County, which is further to the south, in Martin County. And what I thought of was, somewhere there's a shitty little apartment. There's 2 guys sitting in there. One of them is opening the bags. The other one is stuffing the bags. And this is how they spend their day, dispensing this kind of hatred. So I thought, what kind of boneheads would do that and think that they were accomplishing anything? I saved the bag. I don't have it here, but I saved it because it was so, it was disgusting. But then I just thought, look, there's idiots that are out there doing this. And they eventually got arrested. You'll be shocked to learn they were 2 guys in a pickup truck. 2 white guys in a pickup truck. They got arrested. But point is, so that's where those characters, Dale Figo, who is sort of the main knucklehead. The book kind of opens with him. He's going into a community, and he needed an extra set of hands to throw these baggies in people's yards. And then there's an altercation, and it sort of unrolls from there.
Yeah. So truth is stranger than fiction sometimes.
Yeah.
But
in Florida,
not true. So let's talk a little bit. You said about his, kind of cohort in crime, Jonas, and how those 2 meet up and how different they are and yet similar.
Well, the one thing they both have in common is that Jonas, in his case, lives with the remorse that he didn't get to go to the January 6th insurrection. One of his kids swallowed a baby turtle out of a terrarium, so he was and he's for the last several years he's been pissed off that he wasn't there. Dale went, and without giving too much away, Dale got to enter the Capitol, and he was one of the guys that decided to take a dump in the Capitol building, but it wasn't Pelosi's office. He took it somewhere completely different, and as a result, he was thrown out of the Proud Boys. He was expelled from the Proud Boys.
You got to be, as you said, kind of too dumb and incompetent to be kicked out.
And since that happened, he was blackballed by all the major white supremacist groups. Nobody wanted anything to do with him. So that's the fire that's burning within him, as he wants to redeem himself and get back in their good graces. Jonas, meanwhile, just wants another January 6th. And that's all he wants, is another shot. And so the two of them set out to make this happen. Dale starts his own group. It's called the Strokers for Liberty. And part of it is a rebellion. And I'm not making this up, as my friend Dave Barry would say. Part of it was a rebellion against, and I don't know how much you know about the Proud Boys, but most of them came from Florida. Again, shocker. They had very strict rules about for the male members about pleasuring
activities to engage in.
Pleasuring oneself. They had very strict. You were allowed like once a month, and Dale has taken it to the other direction. He said, if I'm going to have my own group, they're going to be able to do that whenever they want, and we're not going to get inhibited by that kind of thing. So it's the Strokers for Liberty is formed, and there are recruiting issues almost from the first page. There's challenges from the first page, but they have a goal and a mission, and there's a big event that they finally get funding for. They get some money together, and it's not quite on a scale of the January 6th riot, but they see this as a stepping stone to that another insurrection, if necessary.
Exactly. Somebody like to call attention to what they're doing, and absolutely. And one of the things that makes Dale so ridiculously funny is he has a mom.
Yes.
Who intervenes in his life, and he has a tenant in his apartment building.
Right.
Which just add to the chaos and the disruptiveness, because she's working for, a foundation that believes that they're doing philanthropic work, so that's like kind of at odds with what, Dale's looking to accomplish.
Right. His tenant is named Viva Morales, and she's living with him because she couldn't afford, he had a room in his apartment he was renting out. She didn't know he was this crazy maniac when she moved in, but she had nowhere else to stay. Her ex-husband had cleaned her out. She'd come to Florida to start a new life. She's working as as the head of fundraising for what she thought is a legitimate, charity, and turns out it isn't. And that's, again, Florida. So when she finds out what Dale's up to, she sort of thinks he's just this harmless. She thought he's just an idiot. And then the guns start showing up, and then she catches him stuffing the baggies, packing the baggies. He has beach sand he's using for ballast. And so she sets up some ground rules for the apartment, like, I don't want to see those, and you can't bring those into the kitchen. And he has no choice, because his mother doesn't know about all this stuff. And his mother is a former boxer.
Yes.
And so when she comes over, Dale usually ends up flat. He usually ends up down for the count. She didn't put up with anything. So, and then the other main character has been in another book of mine or two, named Twilly Spree. Yeah. He inherited tons of money from a grandfather who was in the mining business and sort of in the extraction business, and just to punish Twilly, who is an environmentalist, left him more money than he can count. So he keeps apartments all over Florida. He doesn't stay in one place very long. He kind of just drifts in and out of certain situations. He's got a lot of severe anger management issues.
Severe anger management.
Yeah.
No filter.
And so he gets involved in this because he meets, and this is also something that almost happened to me on a plane. This opens the book. Twilly's flying back to Florida from somewhere, and Viva is flying to Florida after signing the divorce papers for her worthless husband. And she's sitting across from her, and she's reading the New Yorker. And Twilly is enchanted by this, because this is a plane to Florida. And not a lot of times you see that. Someone actually reading something literate on the plane. So he becomes obviously transfixed with her, and she kind of brushes him off. And as soon as the plane lands and she gets up and leaves, he knows that she's left the magazine. So he grabs the magazine, and it's got an address. It's got her address label on it. and he just tucks it away and tracks her down and in a really not too stalkery a way, but it's something that, you know, you think about it, it would be if you're going to try to meet someone. But anyway, he was thrilled about the New Yorker thing. He was beside himself, and his last thought as the plane was landing, how lucky he was to be sitting anywhere on a plane in Florida with somebody reading something like that, and the chance. He entertained the idea that she might even be a registered voter, and that was exciting to him. You know, that was
I was going to
also
say atypical
it was
for.
kind of a turn on, a little bit of a turn on, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it's fun, these characters that you have and the relationships and how it kind of puts perspective into politicians and foundations and philanthropy, because there's a congressman, Clore Boyette. We're going to say
Yeah.
another knucklehead, right?
Yeah,
But for different reasons.
he's a congressman from the Panhandle, comes from a very wealthy family. He's gotten in a lot of scrapes, but his dad's always bailed him out. He has has some problems with cocaine, had some problems with dating women not of an appropriate age,
Yep.
and then paying them with a Venmo account. Stupidest
It's like
crime ever committed, by the way. And and he's in the middle of a re-election campaign, and so he gets connected with Dale Figo and the Strokers because he needs their help. He thinks the election is going to be stolen in this one little particular precinct, not the county. He knows they can't handle the whole county. He's thinking maybe these clowns can handle just a precinct, you know. And
Right.
so he gets them involved in a scheme to secure the precinct. And again, the talent pool, the recruitment pool for white supremacist groups, it varies in depth.
I was going to say,
I'll just leave
the
it at
shallow
that.
is.
It varies in depth. So there's some issues that Dale has to deal with, managerial kind of issues, and so that's sort of the kickoff point.
It is a great story, and I can't tell you how many times laughed out loud while reading it, to the point where people were looking at me saying, well, you know, what's so funny? And of course, I'm in the library reading it, so I'm supposed to be quiet, but it's quite fun. And then they're kind of lead up to kind of like almost like a test run, a dry run. You know, is this something that you experienced too? Because you did experience baggies, you did experience, you know, some of these other things on a plane and seeing somebody.
I was very interested when our governor, the Honorable Ron DeSantis, decided that drag shows were posing a threat to the youth and moral fabric of Florida. And I thought, well, that's a priority that really hasn't popped up before. And I spent a lot of time in Key West down there fishing, and my wife goes down. So one time, and I had not been. There's some very famous kind of drag show on Duval Street in Key West. So we went one night, and it was great. It was fantastic, funny as hell. And then, but it occurred to me that if you were in one of these groups and you decided you were going to make kind of have a target, and you decide you were going to go after a drag show or a drag club, that would be a bad idea because they'll kick your ass. I'm serious. So Dale doesn't know. He thinks it's going to be a pushover. He thinks this is going to be the easiest thing. A few people said, no, we don't really want to go to Key West. This will be easy. This will be a training for the next big mission. It goes horribly wrong, as they say on Fox News, just horribly. But it would be, I can envision it. I can totally envision it happening that way, because these
Such a great scene.
Well, it's just of all the things we have here in Florida to be worried about. That's nowhere on the list.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not kind of
no.
high list of priorities and things that need attention. So do you have as much fun writing these scenes as we do reading them? I mean, do you find yourself chuckling out loud as you're
Never, never.
seriously?
Mm-mm.
Oh
No,
my goodness.
no. I mean, I come out of my office looking like I just went to a funeral on most days. But that's the nature. And I've talked to Dave Barry about it quite a bit too, because he gets asked the same question. And I mean, it's such a serious business. If you write a line or a passage or a bit of dialogue,
Mm-hmm.
something in your brain is saying, yeah, that's funny. That's what I'm looking for right there. But
Yeah.
but there's also part of your brain that is just because it's a tightrope. One wrong adjective, the beat is wrong, the rhythm is wrong of a sentence. One little thing off and it's not funny anymore. It's flat. It lays flat on the page. So you're so concentrated on tweaking it to make every bit of dialogue just right, to make every. And I have done this. I have awakened in the night thinking about an adjective, one single adjective that I used in a sentence that day when I was working, thinking, oh my God, that's the dumbest. Why did I use that? And then making a note to myself, next morning I've got to get back on the computer and fix it. But that's so no, I think there's a part of you, especially after all these years, that I know, okay, that's working, that character's working, that's funny idea, but you're never, it's just, if you look of just the gaunt agony on the, is how I would describe
Well,
my expression most of the time.
well, I think as librarians and readers, we would say thank you for that agony every day because it makes our days a whole lot
But
brighter,
but
a
you know
whole
what
lot
I'm
more
saying?
fun.
You
Yeah,
understand
no,
what I'm
it's
saying
work
about
to
how
get it just right.
it isn't formulaic writing.
No, no,
In my case, I always have the characters before I have the plot, and I sort of let the characters figure out the plot. So what happens when you throw all these people together? And I spend the rest of the time trying to rope them in and make sense of it. I don't
right.
have the structure that gives you the comfort of saying like, okay, this is my act one, my act two, my act three, or here's my outline. I don't have an outline. So it's always a tightrope, and you want people laughing on every page. So you look at every page almost in a surgical way. And after you've written a line and read it 100 times, I can promise you there's nothing funny about it at all. You hate it. You're tired of it, you know.
Yeah, well, because you're so close to it,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think, because you spent
exactly.
so much time with these characters,
That's
and I
exactly
imagine
right.
that they hang out with you. You know, you're heading,
Yeah, yeah.
out to dinner, or you're unloading the dishwasher, and you got Dale saying, "Hey, this is what I'm gonna do."
No, and and just yeah, it's just when you're done, you know whether it's okay or not, but you never let go of the idea that it could be better, and you all the way out the door to the last time you hit the button to send it to the
Send.
editor. That very last time you just one more, let me take one more pass, and
Yeah,
at some point you just got to let it go.
yeah. I will. They say like art is never done; it's simply abandoned. Like you get to that point where you just have to.
Yeah, that's
But
not
but
right.
I can say, look at your bookshelves or my bookshelves, and know that it's done well. Your approach and you know the time and the craft and the attention to detail to get just the right cadence, because when I'm reading your books, I can hear the dialogue, I can hear the cadence of their voices, which
Yeah,
is you know a spectacular feat as a writer, to take something that's flat and give it depth,
and
and
I
characters that
sometimes.
I'm like, oh, I'm sitting at the bar after rowing practice, and I was like, oh God, that's a Dale over there,
Oh, they're
like
there. Oh, I see
they're,
them.
they're oh they're there.
They're
There's
out
too
there.
many of them right now.
Um, I always take some comfort, or try to, in the fact that people say, "Well, you write about these people and these criminals and these psychos, and and aren't you worried about you? Aren't you afraid?" And even some of the politicians that claim that they were a model for some character in the book, but I I feel very strongly that most of them are not readers. For
Yes.
instance, I don't think the real Dale and the real Jonas, I don't think they're reading novels.
I,
Um,
I would think no.
for
I would
instance,
think magazines
well,
for
I'll
the
just mention,
articles.
I should say one of Dale's recurring problems on these screeds that he writes is
Mhm.
he just cannot spell Holocaust.
Oh yeah.
And at some point, his mother hates what he's doing, but she sees one of these flyers, and and she knows it's him because he's an idiot.
Yeah. And even the language that he uses, like
Yeah, no, the
a
language.
particular phrase, and it's like, wait a second, like, no way.
Well,
You know?
the first thing in the book when I quote from the flyer
Yes.
in the book, that's exactly the flyer that I got on the driveway.
Oh, heck no.
Yes, it
Oh,
is.
that's
It's exactly.
disturbing.
It's word for word. Yeah.
Just, gosh, wish more people would read and then realize life is not so bad, like
Yeah. But on the other hand, it's better than having them knock on your door, isn't it?
it is true. It is very true. So you are both, not only a novelist, right, but you're also an accomplished journalist. So how does that influence your approach to writing these novels?
Well, I mean, I retired a couple of years ago from the Miami Herald. I've been there 45 years. So that's plenty of time. What does happen though is you can't, very hard to turn off the switch. You sort of absorb and react to news differently if you've been in the business, because if you've been in the business any length of time, you have zero faith in humanity, and you're just so jaded that it's hard to get too shocked by anything. But you still are every day. I'm on I don't know how many newspapers, punishing myself by reading stories that I know are going to depress me. But when I was doing the column, you're always looking for material. So
Mhm.
that part of my day hasn't changed. I mean, I'm not writing the column, but I'm still reading as if I were looking for those things. And in some cases, the kinds of things that I would be writing about in the column, at least thematically, are exactly the same as in the novels. And it was always that way, even when I was doing both jobs. That the newspaper business in particular in Florida is such a fertile. I mean, for if you're in whatever you're doing, any kind of writing, there's so much material here that
Right.
it was a great overflow bin, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. What's the biggest thing that changes as, you talked about, how you absorb news differently having been in the business? What's like the first thing that you look for or that,
Well, again, because I was born and raised here,
yeah,
I always have my antenna up for the freak factor, you know, because I'm so used to it. I mean, Florida Man, the hashtag thing is a fairly recent kind of phenomenon, but I mean, I've been writing about that
exactly.
so long and now I'm beginning to see it in stories from all over the country. There were certain stories you used to see and would say only in Florida, and I predicted this would happen, that before long the rest of the country is going to become Floridized. I mean, it's going to these weird things are sort of happen everywhere, and they have been. We do still have a lot of it, but I always kind of look for the other shoe to drop in Florida, the news stories, like when the whole Matt Gaetz scandal broke. And this was
Yes.
over a year ago, to like when all this started happening and the federal investigation was begun. And it wasn't just, oh yeah, he was fooling around. I knew. Then you get into, they said, oh yeah, and it's all documented on his Venmo account. That's the Florida angle right there. That's the level of stupidity that hits home right away. Then you go, okay, that's a Florida story. That's a Florida.
Yeah.
I mean, we have if you're going to be corrupt and degenerate and sloppy,
At least be smart about it.
that goes on everywhere. You just don't.
True.
I mean, but that we take it to this other level of just, oh, that's like sitcom level stuff. I mean, it's not
Almost, yeah.
funny, but it's so bumbling, I guess is a word.
Well, without a doubt. I mean, it's kind of like they could be examined as case studies for how not to do certain things or how
Oh,
not
yeah.
to get caught. Because it's, the guy who writes on the back of his deposit slip to the teller that he wants to, like, come on.
I think
So,
I think that to be now, because the second White House is essentially in Palm Beach County, Mar-a-Lago,
mhm.
and that's a magnet for grifters, all kinds of grifters. Even when Trump was out of office, and now they're all swarming here. They want government jobs, they want government contracts. So, like Palm Beach County, West Palm, that whole area is going to be just incredibly fertile ground for the next 4 years
You
because
start a writing school there,
yeah, but it was like the guy that was hanging out at the golf club. You remember the guy, almost second assassin? He'd
Yes.
been hanging out at the golf club
Yeah.
and hiding in the bushes and ooh, what a criminal mastermind. Everybody that knows anything knows when Trump's there, he plays golf almost every day. He takes the same route, the same motorcade. He doesn't have to be a CIA spy.
Mm-mm.
Everybody knew when he went to the golf course, and they knew he was going to go. So the guy just hung around until the day he came. But they're
Yeah.
talking about how did he know? There's only one way that he goes every time, and it's got a 20-car motorcade, and even a numbskull could figure it out.
Exactly. Dale would be right on that, for
Yeah, I
sure.
mean, it would just you just go, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
it was a big, vast conspiracy. That's who the CIA is going to hire to do this, by the way, is this bonehead in the bushes. You know,
Oof. Yeah, exactly.
that's who
Like
they're going to get.
think like a criminal. Well,
Yeah.
there you go. So I'm struck by the poster behind you, Vince Vaughn.
Oh,
Does a
yeah,
great
yeah.
job. Yeah, and Tina mentioned that she loves the Bad Monkey series. So how fun is it to see your work come to life on the screen?
It's it's fun when it turns out
Yeah.
uh, well. It's fun. Bill Lawrence did a great job. He just fought so hard to stay true to the spirit of the book and
Mhm.
I love the scenes that they shot in the Keys, especially
Yeah.
because I love that part of Florida, and there was a lot of location shooting, and I thought Vince was perfect for that part. I never think about when I'm writing these books, I never cast him in my head ever. I don't think
No.
about, oh, this would be a great part for, Julia Roberts or a great part for whatever. I never think that way, but there were several actors that had been interested in it, and then Bill called me and said, Vince Vaughn is interested, and I thought about it. I said, God, he'd be perfect for Andrew Yancey. He really would. But like a lot of things, in Hollywood, you hear this and I just went about my business, and then they call me and said he's in.
Yeah.
But it took a long time to get that it took about 6 years to get that made from the time it was first optioned.
Wow.
Vince wasn't involved at first. There was a couple other actors, that, I mean, it's a process. So,
It,
well, I didn't, when it came out, I'd seen the scripts, but I hadn't seen all the episodes. And so
okay.
I kind of watched it as each show dropped with
Yeah.
the rest of the country, and it was fun. I mean, I have to say it captured the spirit of the book. Some of the characters were a little different than obviously in the book. There were some scenes that I wish from the book that didn't get in there. And I understand why, but Bill was worried about like Apple. I don't think you can do that on Apple TV, and now you
Yeah.
can do anything on Apple TV. But the monkey. Let me just say, the monkey in the book was was really bad, and the
Yes.
monkey on the show was not as bad as the monkey in the book.
Yes. Yeah. Well, congratulations on that. And,
Thank you.
comments are coming in saying, how much they love the series, how great, Vince was in that role, and how well it captured the book. So it's always, I think, a writer's dream to
They're
see it
they're
capturing the
they're
essence and the spirit of the book.
they're talking about the second season, uh, and I'm cool with that. Talking about using Razor Girl for the second season, which would be fun. So
Yeah.
but we'll see. It's Hollywood, and things could happen. But I'd be fine with that. They were very, very nice to me and very
Good.
uh, you know they they cared a little. They cared about it. So
Well, makes a big difference when people care.
yeah.
So, speaking of caring, I would love to spend more time talking to you. I mean, the time just absolutely flies. So, as we wrap up, I just want to say thank you to everybody who joined us for this session. Remember that today's sessions are being recorded, so are available to be downloaded on demand for the next 3 months. And next, we have 2 concurrent sessions, book club reads and powerful, heartfelt stories, a picture book journey to emotion. Thank you so much, everybody, and happy reading.
Thanks, Jen.
Yeah, thank you.